Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us from the comforts of your home. We have about 30 attendees right now from across the country and from Zambia and from London and from South Africa. So we're really excited to be with you today. I'm your host, Hilia Ejo, and I'll just take you through some house rules before we start. So first of all, our webinar will run until 12 o'clock and we'll have a 10-minute break at 10:50. But we'll let you know when we get there. In case you can't hear us right now, please click on Join Audio. It'll be in the bottom panel of your screen. And then we'll have a feedback form at the end of the call, just so that you can give us comments and suggestions. As a panelist, you will be able to mute or unmute your microphone when the time comes for you to speak. And you'll also be able to switch your video on and off. As an attendee, definitely feel free to communicate via the chat function, keep the conversation going, and then ask questions using the Q&A function, and then we'll be able to read them and answer accordingly. To run you through the program briefly, my name is Hilia, as I said, and I'm starting the webinar. And then we'll have Elizabeth John from Dololo giving the welcoming remarks, followed by a video on active learning that will have Mr. Ilari Lindy from the Southern Africa Innovation Support, SICE for short, who will just give us an overview on their involvement in the project. And then we'll have some more project insights from Ms. Suvi Ninonen from the University Properties of Finland, and another video on the active learning environment, so you can really see what they've been doing on the ground. And then we'll have Q&A session with the teachers, so you can really ask them what's been going on at their schools and what's been working, and we'll have a break, and then we'll continue after that. First up, we have Elizabeth John from Dololo, and she will be taking you through the Dololearn project as the project assistant.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hilia. That was a warm welcome introduction. Again, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. A warm welcome to all on behalf of Dololo and all of our partners. Thank you for taking time to join us for Dololearn online seminar to discuss the important topic of education, and during which we look forward to showcase some of the key project findings. In short, Dololearn is a pilot project by two partners country, Namibia and Finland. The pilot project has been funded by SICE, the Southern Africa Innovation Support, which is supported by the Ministry for Foreign Affairs of Finland in partnership with the National Commission for Research, Science and Technology. The project consortium consists of Dololo Namibia as a project coordinator, polar partners, Finnish education expert, the University Properties of Finland, who specialize in learning environment, and Tabeld Namibia, furniture design and manufacture in Namibia. During the pilot, we worked with two pilot schools, Faith Primary School, a public school in Vanaheda, here in Windhoek, and Bergop Academy, a private school in Okahanya. The Namibian government currently spends more than 20% of its annual budget on lower education. However, we don't always see the return on investment that we hope and expect in the education sector. The Dololearn project was started to address this challenge to improve the return on investment in education. We looked to explore some of the key success factors of the Finnish education system that can be applied in the Southern African context. During the project, we focus on the three areas, namely the pedagogical teaching methods, embracing active learning for improved skills, know-how, and understanding and really looking at both the role of the teacher and learners. The second one is a physical learning environment, creating active learning environment that promote learner-centered approaches. Last but not least is the e-learning, and the core topic of today in the pandemic COVID-19, which gives access to information and education tools that allows learners to progress at their own pace. I would like to leave you with a short quote from Nelson Mandela that says, "Education is the most powerful weapon with which we can change the world." Please enjoy a short video as an introduction of the Dololearn and the rest of this event. Have fun, and again, thank you for joining us today.
I have a dream that every Namibian child should have access to quality education. Namibia should be the leading in exporting know-how and expertise worldwide instead of raw material and resources that will eventually run out. But how do we get there? Well, by improving our education. In 2018, a group of ambitious Namibian organizations, the Dololo and Tabeld team, along with two equally ambitious schools, Bergop Academy and Faith Primary School, partnered with the world leaders in education, Finland, specifically with Polar Partners and University Properties of Finland, aiming to bring us closer to that Namibian dream.
I have to put myself in the shoes of when I was a child, and the type of education that I've received and what Dololearn is doing is something I should have if I was given that opportunity back then.
My name is Suvi Nenonen and I'm coming from Finland, University Properties of Finland. And today my task here has been to describe a bit different choices, what a teacher can do in order to enhance active learning methods and how to use a classroom as one tool.
Our focus in this project is really looking to address the problem of a low return on investment in our education sector in Namibia. In the Dololearn project, we're looking at three aspects. We're looking at the pedagogical methods that are used, we're looking at the physical learning environment, and we're also looking at e-learning as a really powerful tool. The focus of this project is really how can we improve those, and how can we learn from some of the successes from the Finnish education system, a world leader in education, and apply those in a local Southern African context, but where teachers get to experience firsthand themselves some of the activities that can be used in the classroom to encourage active learning. And active learning is really a method of getting active participation by the learners versus passive learning, where they are just sitting and listening and taking in things. They're actively contributing, they're discussing, they're interpreting, and are also presenting. And through doing so, have a much more active role to play in learning.
We were given a course on learner-centered education. It really broadens my understanding of that aspect in particular. It helps me to now, in a better way, understand my learners, keep them actively involved, giving them that a sense of understanding, sense of belonging in the classroom, the sense of sharing ideas with the fellow learners, etc. It also aims at equipping us to use the little resources at our disposal in a better way.
We've been doing a series of smaller engagements of ICT training, setting up video calls, connecting to globally, basically using very simple and basic technologies.
Dololo, we've been busy with them now for almost a year more, actually 2, I think, almost. So we've been running lots of pilot programs. Last year we did teacher gaming and Edmodo, just starting the e-learning platform. And then this year we started with the Edu10 pilot program, where the kids are working with tablets to hone in on their math skills and to get their math skills up to date, seeing that maths is always one of the problem subjects. We're one of the first Namibian schools, us and Faith Primary, to be testing it out, the Finnish app. So yeah.
So you definitely have some questions already buzzing in your minds from seeing the video and seeing, how do the teachers teach and what are they planning on doing going forward. Feel free to ask your questions in the Q&A section. Like I said, the panel is at the bottom of your screen and we'll answer them when you get to the Q&A for the teachers. Projects of this nature definitely can only run with support, right? And for us, as the Dololearn project, we have the Southern African Innovation Support Program that will be supporting, that has been supporting the project from the get-go. And thankfully, we have Mr. Ilari Lindy, the lead expert at the SICE 2 program, and he will be giving you a brief presentation and an overview of the project.
Thank you, Chair. I hope you can all hear me well. So thanks very much for Dololo and the team for organizing this event, and I hope you all are safe and sound in your respected premises, wherever you are, Finland, Namibia, or somewhere else. So my name is Ilari Lindy, and I'm a lead expert in the South African Innovation Support Program. And I wanted to tell you a little bit here about what the program is about and why are we, as a program, why are we providing support for Dololearn project. And as you may heard or you may know, the SICE is an innovation program. And first I wanted to discuss a little bit about what actually is innovation. And for us, the innovation really is about the new or improved products, services, or processes. So it's not something that is invention per se. It really is something that has to be actually to meet in a market and need to be put in a practice of something what people can use. SICE is also a practical, close to the market program. So we are looking to fund activities that are going to be realized in a practical terms that will be brought to the use of the people. And we are also in many ways in a program looking forward that kind of concepts that are already existing, but with the program funding can be brought to the market for a testing and validation. What will the users like about it? Whether they will prefer the features. Just a moment, please. I have a question here. Yeah, I don't have the slides here. Yeah, sorry, I don't have the slides here. They were not able to upload the slides, so I will just tell you very briefly without the slides what SICE is about. So SICE has a funding mechanism called SICE Innovation Fund. And as a program, Innovation Fund is provided and supported by SICE donors. And we have 6 donors: Government of Namibia, Government of Botswana, Government of Zambia, South Africa, Tanzania, and Government of Finland. And Government of Finland is also the main donor for the SICE program. So the majority of the resources come from the Finnish Development Cooperation budget. And the Government of Finland is also the main supporter of SICE Innovation Fund and thus the related projects. We are getting the slides there. I can see, let me walk you through the second slide. I still get the second slide, so I don't have a control over the slides. So let's put the Innovation Fund slide there, yes. So for us, the important thing in SICE is that we support projects that are not only financing innovation per se, but through the financing innovations, we are also supporting innovation ecosystems. So those networks in different parts of economy and society that are bringing different organizations and actors together to think and to test and eventually to roll out the innovation, i.e. services and products to the market for the use of the benefit of the people. It is important for us really to take this ecosystem approach because we see innovation in many ways as a combination of different resources, but also different type of policies and different type of opportunities. So we are mixing and melanging a different type of actors with different type of interests. And all these come together in the innovations as understanding how we can actually pool those care resources and not to duplicate the efforts which already being done. So SAIS Innovation Fund has 3 windows which we are funding the projects. So we have first window where we are looking to fund activities that are related to the, let's say, more analytical work, innovation ecosystems. And here we are looking to see projects, for example, mapping the ecosystems to understand who in particular ecosystem, let's say for education technology or financial technology, who is doing what, where, how, and with whom. We are also in this window looking projects like which are testing and trying to understand how would the new instruments such as angel investor networks, how would they work in a particular market or in a region, SADC region as a whole. We are also then looking the second window of the SAIS, which is called the window scaling enterprises. And here we are looking again practical projects that are supporting startups through supporting the innovation hubs, accelerators, incubators, multiplier organizations in general like Dololo, who are then cascading down the resource and their knowledge for the help of the startups. Typical programs or projects what we are financing are, for example, the continent's first digital acceleration program that has been launched in 4 countries in SADC region, or incubation and acceleration program that is looking particularly to find support and provide early stage financing for EdTech, education technology startups. The third window, which also Dololo project is funded, is inclusive innovation. Here we are looking at activities that are supporting that type of services, products who are potentially targeting their offering to the poorest part of the population or otherwise socially or economically marginalized population. We can see incubators here that are focusing, for example, the startups that are supporting maybe livelihoods or handcraft industry. So that kind of products and services that are not scalable as the technology used or technology-based startups. We are also looking at activities that are helping artisans and small-scale farmers, for example, to develop standards that provide more robust and better understanding how their products can be geared to the wider consumption or to the sales of the larger institutions and corporations' value chains. Now, what does the typical size project then look like? We are really looking the eligibility quite closely, and this was also the case with the Dololo project as well. So SAIS eligible project is usually a market validation project. So we are looking to finance activities that are already having a prototype, already having a concept, and already having an owner. So there has to be an organization who is ready to invest the project to bring it to the market. But SAIS funding will go then to understand who will use the product, on what kind of a format can the product be taken up for the use on a particular target group, what would be appropriate price to pay for this product or service amongst the target group. So we really are looking projects that have already prototype in place, and they are rolling it out with our support to obtain a proof of concept and understand what kind of a business plan would be then applicable for wider rollout or wider rollout to the markets. Now, moving forward, we are really looking at the practical projects. So these have to be activities that, like Dololearn, are relatively low risk, but also potentially high impact. And once rolling out to the market, the consortium should have a fairly good understanding already what are the assumptions that their potential business plan is based on, and what are the assumptions that will make their product or service successful. Now, looking at Dololearn and why this was chosen by size to a funding, it's clear to see that they are operating in a challenging sector. Education per se is a sector where a lot of different stakeholders have different interests, and many of the stakeholders' voices are heard. Oh, it's very difficult to come forward and say that we would, for example, support activity that will reform the education or reform the curricula or even a particular topic within the curricula in certain countries. Instead, we saw that the Dololo project was quite well pitched in a sense that this is already addressing potential advantages that exist in a classroom or exist by the users who are then providing education to the learners. With a little tweaking that may happen the way the educational content is delivered or the way the educational content is received in the classroom, a big change can take place, and this can then be further cascaded down to the benefits of the learners. So in a sense, the Dololo project that's been discussed today has provided a very interesting opportunity for market validation that may not be so challenging for many of the stakeholders in the ecosystems of education and learning. As such, we could also see that the Dololearn as a project fits very well to the concept of incremental innovation. As I already mentioned in the beginning, it doesn't have to be something that is completely new to the market or new to the world. For us in size, if one can actually just improve already existing delivery mechanism or quality of the products so it can reach new users or new target groups, that already qualifies as a very interesting new innovation. So finally, and in closing, I'm very glad to be here to talk about the Dololo project and to understand what have been the results that will be still achieved also in the remaining couple of months to the project. I wanted to leave you with this thought that size projects, these are trans-SADC projects. So all the projects implemented with the size support, these are consortia based. So there are more than one organization who participates. Usually there are more than one organization also that represents from different country, like in the case of Dololearn, the knowledge from Finland and Namibia has been brought together. I'm looking forward to see that what will be then really the outcomes of the project, because we in the SIZE program office and of course our donors, we do see that there is a potential opportunity to scale these experiences, not only in Namibia, potentially also in other SADC countries and even beyond. So I leave it there, and I wish you, Tim, and the rest of the team, including your Finnish partners, of course, a very successful continuation to the end of the project. And thanks for having SIZE providing this contribution today. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ilari. I think it's great that in organizations such as the Southern Africa Innovation Support are able to support innovations within education and other spheres. It's definitely, I can imagine that a lot of other panelists and attendees are looking to be SAIS eligible, and definitely feel free to connect with the organization afterwards. Next up, we have Ms. Suvi Nenonen from one of our partners, the University Properties of Finland, and she couldn't be with us live, but she will be playing, or we will be playing a short video from her just describing her project insights and a little more that she has to say. Thank you.
Hello for everyone, best regards from Finland. My name is Suvi Nenonen. I'm working in University Properties of Finland, and my expertise areas are future learning environments and co-creation. We had a project InLearn, which was funded by Business Finland, and we were able to join you in this very nice journey towards active learning and active learning environments. From this journey, I would like to share you 3 things. Number 1 is change. Change is never ever easy. It is taking us out from our comfort zone, and we have to learn something. But when keeping in mind that changing is learning, it is always a possibility for something new which didn't exist before. The second learning point is about co-creation. Without working together, we couldn't never ever have done this, what we have done. Understanding Namibian culture, integrating few things from Finnish culture and localizing them has been co-creation at its best. On the other hand, school is a huge community with different kind of stakeholders, and co-creation with all stakeholders makes the school be the school. It is important from the early beginning to share the joint vision and to keep that vision during the journey with different stakeholders is very, very important. And the third learning point is co-commitment. It means that after the change process, the co-creation, we need to be co-committed to the solution which we have been created. That makes the solution sustainable, and that makes the solution also to be future-proof. I wish that you are able to share the visions, the experiences, and the co-commitment with the community of your schools in your country, and hopefully in a larger area as well in Southern African region. We have been so happy to be with you. I have all these memories, I have all these changes, learning points, and I am co-committed to work further with you if there is a chance for that. We have one space which is very special, and it is a space in our mind. I would like to say to the end that you will be always in my mind, in my heart, and I hope all the best for your active learning process towards the future. Thank you.
It's no secret that Finland is known for having one of the best education systems in the world. So it's really an honor for the Dololearn project to be able to partner with institutions in Finland and speak and learn a lot about change management and how we can go about coordinating such change within our education system in Namibia. Next up, we have a video demonstrating the active learning environments that have been in practice at Bergop and Faith Primary School. And after that, we'll have some questions that you can ask, or we'll have a Q&A session with the teachers that were involved. So you can ask them questions based on what you've seen in the videos and based on what you've heard thus far. Thank you.
Every Namibian child should have access to quality education. Namibia should be leading in exporting know-how and expertise worldwide instead of raw material and resources that will run out. But how do we get there? Some of the most commonly encountered problems at our schools include overcrowded classrooms with overworked teachers that have very little time to spend with each individual learner. Conventional solutions include educating more teachers and building new or bigger classrooms. However, limited resources make this approach unsustainable. Therefore, a group of ambitious Namibians, the Dololearn and Tabeld team, and two equally ambitious schools, Bergop Academy and Faith Primary, partnered with the world leaders in education, the Finnish, specifically Polar Partners and the University Properties of Finland, to bring us closer to fulfilling our Namibian dream. The physical spaces and how we use our classrooms as learning environments can play a crucial role in improving our education system. Active learning environments can encourage active participation by learners.
Active learning environment is a tool and a way to help learners to be active and get more intensity into learning.
So we try to create new types of furniture that allow for more activities to take place in that classroom in a way that this classroom can be changed from a passive learning environment into an active learning environment. So if you create the flexibility in the classroom to have multiple activities, that you improve like the ways the child is processing the information is being taught at school.
Instead of you passively are sitting in the classroom, you are an active participant of the lesson. And instead of you are sitting and maybe dreaming your own thoughts, you are really actively thinking and taking part and learning.
The inside learning physical environment, basically it's inside the class where you organize tables in a certain way that or not only the teacher who stand in front of the class and preach to the kids, but of course let the teacher teach in a certain way that she or he can able to go through the learners and interact them from a different position, not just in front. Basically that.
Okay, the changes that they brought, we are having new carpets in the class, and we are having some well-designed chairs, the square shape, very, very nice and comfortable. And the tables, especially I like the table where they can write, even practice anything on drawing, anything on the table with chalks or either the cookies. Then also they put some hangers where they can hang the bags. So in that way, the classes is also now more spacious because the bags are not on the floor anymore, they are just hanged and they look so neat.
As you can see, every child is a teacher in my class. Every child is working with the desk and the chalk which I'm giving them. And they have to write as a teacher on their chalkboards. They have to do all the things I'm doing on my blackboard. They have also to do on their desk. I see to have them on the boxes. I see to have them on the mat. I see to have them on the desk, and we are doing the job together.
When I saw the new classroom, I realized it looked kind of cinema-like, and at the same time it was very comfortable for me. I love the fact that the tables, you could write on them and they're very comfortable. I love the fact that you can still project and watch videos in the classroom.
What I like about my new classroom is that you can write on our tables and erase on the tables, and you can put our bags on the hangers.
It's not a lesson that I have to repeat over or in a different way. It's, because they're learning it through a playful manner, that it's just once and they get it.
The Dololearn project looked to progressive solutions that could readily be implemented at Namibian schools with available resources. By effectively using existing classrooms, introducing shelves, bag racks, and multifunctional furniture, the space available for learners was increased by as much as 20%. The results show that with simple but effective solutions, significant improvements can be made to our physical learning environments at Namibian schools.
Such interesting changes to the active learning environment and it's interesting to hear as well how teachers and learners have been engaging with it. So the real question is, how did this play out on the ground, right? And thankfully, we have the teachers with us on the call, and we can ask them questions via the Q&A, and just to get some more insights into the program and their own experiences. To start off, we'll have all of the teachers introduce themselves briefly, and you can get to know them, and then remember to ask your questions in the Q&A section, and we'll answer them accordingly. Perhaps we can start with Mr. Romanus Kanyanga.
Good morning, colleagues. Can you guys hear me? Let me switch on my camera. Hi guys, how are you today? My name is Mr. Romanus Kanyanga. I am a history grade 9, computer studies grade 11 to 12, and I also teach commerce subjects. And I have been doing this project for, let me say, we started last year, and it has tremendously changed the way that we've been teaching. So I'm super excited to hear more questions from you guys. Yeah, that's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Romanus. Mr. Petros Takeus. Mr. Petros Takeus. Maybe we should try Miss Maria and Miss Frida instead, sorry.
Good morning. Can you hear me? I'm Ms. Frida from Faith Primary School. I'm a grade 1 teacher, as you can see on the short video there. I enjoy teaching. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is Mr. Petros with us now? I think we lost him, no problem. Let's start on with the questions, and then we'll address the ones you have in the Q&A, and we'll hear more from the teachers. To start off, let's hear from Bergop Academy and Faith Primary School, just as to what the learners' experiences were with the physical learning environment, both inside the classroom and outside. Ms. Frida, maybe you can start off with that one.
Sorry, my sister. Okay, to carry on what I have learned from the Dololo, since Dololo come in our lives at Faith Primary School, and me as a grade 1 teacher, it is a great pleasure for me to introduce the teaching I'm experiencing now in my class, because once I got the papers and the mat and all the desks in my class, I'm so much proud of my learners and the way I'm interacting with them. We can, all of them now, since we have the tables in our classes. All of them are now teachers and learners. We all are doing our work together. I explained on the writing board, and the peers are now explaining to the other learners on their tables. And if we are having maybe RME, arts and environment lessons, we are going to the mat. While the slow ones are on the tables writing what I'm giving them to do on the tables, then if they are teachers for themselves, they know what to do. They are so proud to be a teacher in a class while I'm busy with the others on the mat. And it's very spacious. The class, the learners can enjoy. They can go around and give the good work to the other learners. They can teach each other. So for me, it's very important to be in my class every time. Without sitting on my table, I am going around, I am teaching them, and then they are also giving back to me. Sorry. Oh. So for me, these Dololearn have done a lot for us, especially in the classes. And for outside, there is an outside class for us where we have to go, and then on our foyer, there is ABC and 1, 2, 3, where the learners can jump and count, and then the learners can also sound the ABC for maybe for that period, and then the girls are now set on the mathematics side where they have to yam on the number I'm giving them. So for us, is for me as a teacher, it's very good to experience such a good thing from Dololearn and from the other partners. Thank you.
Excuse me. Apologies. There was some problems with the PC. I'm Mr. Sakias from Faith Primary School. I'm teaching English in KKG, and I'm also responsible for e-learning at our school. I'll say Dololearn coming to Faith Primary School was actually a blessing for a school that is located on the outskirts of Windhoek, that caters mostly for kids that are coming from a less fortunate background, that most of them have never seen a tablet or a computer. I think Dololearn coming to the school and exposing them, providing e-learning tools to the school, has brought on a world of good to not only to the teachers, but to the community as a whole. So the physical development that has also been brought to the school has enabled school to save on many aspects, such as the desk where the kids are writing, has saved the school on buying more copy paper, buying more books, as grade 1 learners are more prone to writing or being taught to write. So all in all, I'll say Dololearn coming to Faith Primary School was really a blessing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Romanus, do you want to add on how the experiences have been at Bergop?
Okay, I also just want to add a few things. Bergop is actually like high school now, so we use this techniques in a little bit of a different way. If I can just take it from subject to subject. Okay, like let me say our grade 10s, we use the Edu10. It's an application where kids can do mathematics using an it's like they are playing games and they are reaching the levels. So from the feed, first of all, it made mathematics fun and very interactive. So before, kids didn't really want to go to the maths class, but after this whole new thing that Dololo introduced to us, a lot of kids were really eager to go to the math. Pi, it's a software that we use for programming, where learners use music to actually program. So by using music, you can do a certain type of program. So since we have grade 12 computer studies learners, which were also very interested in this, because before it was difficult to teach them how to do programming and then the theories of programming, but now using music to show them how the whole program thing works helped quite a lot. And to add more is like when it comes to the indoor and outdoor, we use the outdoor, we had our classes under the tree. It was also very interesting to some of the kids because they really enjoyed it, going outside of the classroom, and this made it more fun for them as well. And the other thing, like Ms. Frida said, even the grade 12s enjoyed the writing on the tables because we also had these whiteboards on the tables where learners can write their summaries. And this was quite a very interesting thing as well. So yeah, to add on that, I think that's all. But overall, I could say it was a holistic way of teaching the learners. The learners really enjoyed the techniques. Until today, we are still using some of the methods that we were taught. Yeah, so I think that's all I could say for now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And sort of to draw from that, perhaps a question has come up from the Q&A section, and it's directed to you again, Mr. Rahman, so I'll just read it out to you. Since most of the education systems are designed based on a mechanistic view of the world, how can we better use new pedagogies, such as simulation games, to promote systems thinking in teaching curriculums towards more transformative, sustainable learning? Did you get it, or should I repeat it perhaps?
Okay, let me just really go to the Q&A. How can we new methodologies stimulate game?
So I think essentially they're asking the new simulation games that we're having and the active learning environment. How do we use those to promote systems thinking, or rather to promote a more sustainable, transformative learning system?
Hello, sorry, my network cut, but yeah, I got the question. How thinking and the teaching towards. Okay, can you guys hear me now? Because I was off for a while. My network was cut. All right. So the first thing is, first of all, it's a different way of learning. You understand? It's a holistic way because most of the time learners were used to having the teacher in front and then the teacher teaching them. So when we got the new techniques where we made the teachers also the learners teachers as well. Like if I can give you a simple example, there is a method where we introduce topics like where learners don't know, like let me say, let's take a topic like entrepreneurship, like a subject, and then we put in a practical concept. So what we did basically is before we teach the learner on basically what the topic is about, we just give the learner a word. Like for example, I would say types of businesses. I will give them one word, and then I have to ask them to go do research based on that statement. So now what the learners did is they do their research, and then they come back to class, and then they have to present. So like most of the time, learners were used to the concept of they are first given the information, and then you give them homework. But now you are giving them the final, what they need to know. They do their homework, and then they come and give feedback. So from my point of view, this type of, we still use both methods, but this methodology that we use, that we were taught the kids, and it made it easier for them to start understanding the concepts, and it also brought in a lot of independence. They were no more dependent on us as teachers, but they were more dependent on themselves. So the question is like the question said, like, does it works in this concept that we have, but not all subjects might be able to adapt to it as a teacher. So it just depends on how you integrate it into your subject, if I can put it that way. I'm not sure if I answered the question, but yeah. I don't know what Ms. Frida has to say about that. Maybe she can also add to it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Romanes. Our next question is directed towards Ms. Frida, especially with your grade 1 learners. The question comes from Beriuka Mawa, who is asking, what are the notable improvements in terms of academic outcomes for the learners? So are they passing better, or are they retaining more knowledge? Are they drawing the ABCs quicker?
Yeah, for me to come in there is basically what I experienced from my learners is that once they are using the peer teaching, I, as a teacher, is standing there maybe for 5 minutes and I explain to them. And then the group leader is basically, again, in the groups, they are explaining what I have told them in the groups. And then once they have started to work on their tables, then if I go around, I see that they can catch up easily from their peers, and working on their own is also part of the growing process for them. So for me, it's better for me, for them to work in the groups, and then they can catch up easily, and then I can also assist them easily. Then for me, it's just to take my pen and paper, walk around, and then I will assist for them and give a mark already. So for me, it's very easy to do it from the desk to the table.
Thank you, Ms. Frida. So unfortunately, we don't have much more time to engage with that, or to engage in more questions, and we'd love to, and I'm seeing all the questions in the Q&A, and I wish we could answer them all, but we do have to move on to a quick break. So we have a 10-minute break, and we'll be or an 8-minute break actually. We'll be starting promptly at 11, and we will have, so use this time to sort of stretch, use the bathroom, grab a snack. And thank you so much to our teachers for joining us on the call. We really appreciate you taking the time to join us. After the break, we'll have Ms. Eda Bon from the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture. She is the Deputy Executive Director at the Ministry, and we'll be hearing the keynote address from there. So be back promptly at 11. See you. Thank you. Welcome back after the break. We have really great questions in the Q&A section, and unfortunately we can't answer all of them in this live event. However, we will be pasting the questions and the answers on our Facebook event page, and we'll post the link in the chat as well. So we'll try to address those after the event so that you can still continue the conversation and still hear more about the Dololearn project. Naturally, this project would not be able, well, with any innovations in education, we definitely can't implement them without input from the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture themselves. So thankfully with us today, we have Ms. Eda Ban, the Deputy Executive Director for the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture, and she'll be giving the keynote address.
Yes, a wonderful good morning. Can you hear me? All right. I'm here to deliver a keynote address, which sounds very elevated. And what I would like to emphasize is that the Ministry of Education went through a series of reform processes since independence. We recognize also that with this reform, addressing access, quality, equity, efficiency, management capacity, as well through a democratic process. The main change from independence, from pre-independence to the independent Namibia was introducing learner-centered education. And learner-centered education is quality education. So in terms of the future, we have managed to maintain access at 90% at primary. But when we look at the throughput as well as access at senior secondary, then we only manage just above 50%. So the challenges are still there in terms of achieving access and throughput to senior secondary, and those would be the drivers to economic development and speaking actually life into our Vision 2030. And I take cognizance of what was mentioned earlier, that vision is a driver of the change. Vision that is internalized by everyone. So back to the achievements, access is there, but quality, yes, leaves many points to improve. If we take a quick look at the trend of performance, we have seen that there are subjects at senior secondary that really managed to improve. You might have realized that one of the reform steps about 20 years ago was introducing mathematics to be compulsory. The first cohort that managed to take mathematics right through to senior secondary in 2011, we have observed an improve actually in mathematics. So at the point of inception of that reform process of making mathematics compulsory, there was not a great or good understanding of that principle. But as we proceed through this action of making mathematics compulsory, we have actually seen improved results. So there are often interventions that are taken on where the anticipated outcome is not fully internalized. But as we move on, we will see the impact. The same now with learner-centered education. Whereas our teacher education programs have been adjusted. At the turn of the century, we brought out, or at the turn of the century around the globe, the principle of adopting standards, national standards and performance indicators for schools, because there goes the saying that unless you know what your target is, you will miss it. So the national standards and performance indicators describe the performance of a school in 7 key areas, and through the self-evaluation process, a school can rate itself in the areas in 4 stages, where the performance from weak, less strength, more weaknesses, that would be at level 1, up to level 4, where the school would be in excellent mode. So that document informed many processes. Alongside with that, because I said earlier, teacher education programs were reformed, along with the national performance standards for teachers in Namibia. So that document embraces the role of the teacher as a facilitator and informed the reform process for teacher education. But education altogether being a multifaceted enterprise, and it was also once compared to a big tanker. It takes time to be steered in the right direction. Equally much, education has deep going roots, and in order to replant this big tree, a lot of effort is required. So let me emphasize that the future of education is within recognizing the individual's potential and capacitating teachers as well as the environment and providing the necessary resources. Now, we all are aware of the physical constraints in terms of the physical space, that is the resource allocation. Yes, more than 20% of national budget goes to education, but we also have to recognize that more than 75% of that total allocation has to go into remuneration. A portion has to go to development budget, and then very little is left for innovation. So what this calls on to us is to find alternative ways, find through the initiative and innovation of doing things differently, do more with less. That should be our guiding principle. And we know that our learner numbers now stand nearly close to 1 million. 800,000 learners the Ministry of Education has enrolled in its schools, with a teaching force of over 30,766 to be specific. And the most recent survey on teachers having access to ICT, because yes, talking of the future in education, you would reflect on the modern technology, and we heard earlier the senior secondary teacher reflecting on the use of ICT in education. It is the mode that we should encourage and follow. And believe me, even 20 years ago, it was encouraged. And since then, the ministry has gone through, how shall I say, heights and lows in terms of ICT rollout, such that only about 700 schools have access to ICT. But of this entire teaching force that participated in the survey, I'm very happy to announce that more than 24,000, and we are still processing more data that has come in, unfortunately paper-based, and that delays the process, but more than 24,000 teachers have actually come forth to say that they have access to the one or other device, from a smartphone to a tablet or a laptop, and that they are ICT wise. Therefore, this future that we like to embrace in utilizing ICT in improving the quality of education, but also the quality of delivery in terms of that through integration of ICT, integration of technology into the education system, further heights can be achieved. Besides this, how shall I say, very exclusive luxury commodity of ICT, which should actually be made accessible for all in all corners of the country, we still face other infrastructure challenges, which should be our priority in this future that we are talking about, or even in the right presence that we find ourselves amidst this health crisis, which is that less than or how shall I say, let me rephrase. It's about 10 to 12% of schools, our schools, that don't have actually access to running water, which is a given commodity, should be accessible for all. So that comes to more than or close to 200 schools that have no water, and therefore needs to urgently be connected. And the ministry has plans in place to get this done. Besides the access to water, of course, the sanitation is an even bigger headache, where more than 200 schools are even without sanitation. And to continue the list is then, of course, the access to electricity as well as telecommunication means. There are still about 500 schools that have no access to the traditional telecommunication system, and equally much no electricity. So these are priorities in this continuum of improving the quality of education that we are engaged with. Of course, projects like the Dololo that opens our minds on alternative delivery modes are welcome, and it is important for us to share the efficiency gains that are being made visible from this project with a wider audience, tap into the ICT, which we have, that is now, except this Zoom platform, the ministry, together with the help of UNESCO and the University of Namibia, we established the Kopano platform where teachers can register and share their best practices. And I would like to encourage all and call on all teachers to register in Kopano and share their best practices. Because only through sharing this snowball of change, adopting change, can grow. And with the critical mass, like we say, there's magic in teams. With that critical mass, we can turn the situation around to improve, to eliminate our repetition and dropout rate, and improve the quality, that is the throughput to senior secondary, to exceed what we have now only in the upper 50%, close to 60, to exceed that and meet actually our national development targets as stipulated in NDP 5. And with these few words, I declare this event open, and further collaboration is more than welcome. Thank you so much on behalf of the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture.
Ms. Eda, before we sort of lose you, we're wondering, would you be willing or able to share the Kopano project with the Dololo team, so we also post it on the events page?
Yes, I will let you have that via email. Right now, I would not have it at my disposal, but I think it's straightforward, and we will share that, yes.
Thank you so much for sharing with us and for joining us from the comfort of your home.
Thank you. All the best to all participants, and we are welcome to engage further.
Great. And just to sort of point out an interesting number that we're playing around with regarding Ms. Edawan's speech, 800,000 learners are in school right? This is primary and secondary school, which is a third of our population, which means 1 in 3 Namibians is a child. And it sort of just reiterates why it's so important to take care of our education system and to really try and do less with more, considering the state of our economy and so forth. Next up, we have a panel discussion with other stakeholders in the Dololearn project, and we'll have Q&A at the end of it. So definitely, once again, we'll try to address as many questions as we can from the Q&A, and those that we don't manage to address, we will post on the events page and address them there. So to start off on the panel, we have Ms. Maria Hapanyemi from Polar Partners. This is a company, well, she'll introduce it, but generally they're exporting or sharing the Finnish education system worldwide. We have Mr. Milton Yaoto from the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture. Christiani will not be able to join us today, but we have Mr. Michael Parsons from Windhoek International School that has already started to do some progressive things in education within their system there. And then lastly, we have Tim Bucha from Dololo Operations. And I'll just give the panelists each a minute to introduce themselves, and then we will start. Maria, could we start with you?
Okay, sure. Hello all. Good day from Finland. I'm glad to be the Finnish member of our team who is participating in this webinar, and unfortunately, I was very much looking forward to have this face-to-face seminar in Windhoek held earlier in April, but unfortunately to the pandemics, we couldn't fly from Finland there. So therefore, I'm very, very happy that we were able to organize this webinar. A little bit about my background and why I was part of this project. I'm a Finnish teacher by my background, so I've been teaching in a secondary school, also in a vocational school and in a university. So I'm teacher of economics by my background. I've also been working as a teacher trainer for over 9 years, training teachers in Finland and globally about active learning methods and about entrepreneurship education, how to combine the real world with the school and classroom activities. So that's a bit of my background, and our company Polar Partners, who is part of this project, is a company that is delivering Finnish education expertise and knowledge worldwide. So we are working with schools not only in Namibia, but in other countries in Asia, in Latin America, and also in different parts of Europe. So happy to be part of the panel. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Milton? Not yet.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, should I introduce myself?
Yes, please.
Oh, thank you very much. My name is Milton Yaoto. I'm in this program because of my relation to education. I am an inspector of education currently with Commerce Regional Council. I've been an educator for over 25 years. I've been a school principal of 2 different schools before I became an inspector of education. My work involved mostly on quality check and making sure that schools are properly run. So that is in a nutshell who I am. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr.
Yes.
Michael?
Morning, can you hear me? Good morning. Can you hear me?
Mr. Michael, are you with us?
Yeah,
yes,
we can
yes,
hear
I
you.
can.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Good morning. My name is Michael Parsons. I'm the Director of Teaching and Learning at Windhoek International School. A bit about my background. I've been involved in international teaching for over 20 years. I've come to Namibia from two very progressive, very well-resourced schools in Asia who are very much into self-directed learning, student agency, voice and choice, and looking at how to use criterion-based assessments to provide feedback so students can better understand where they are in terms of their learning progress. Because when we look at the latest educational research, students being able to self-identify where they are in their own learning is one of the biggest influences in student growth and improvement. So we're trying to look at how we are incorporating criterion-based assessments to improve student understanding and performance within the international examinations our students perform in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Tim.
Hey, Julia. Thank you very much. Yes, my name is Tim, and over the past 2 years, we've been part of the project team and have been coordinating the Dololearn activities. We had the pleasure of working closely together with co-partners Maria and then also Suvi Ninonen, from who you've heard a few words earlier on. And for us, a key interest has always been how do we use some of these progressive principles that are perhaps more common elsewhere in the world, but how can we really use and apply these in Namibia to make every dollar that we're spending and investing in education go as far as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to reiterate, the Q&A is open to everyone. Definitely try to address as many questions as we can. To maybe start us all off, let's start with a question towards Maria. As Polo Partners and as an organization, you've seen different education models in countries like Costa Rica and India. In what ways is the Dololearn project different to perhaps all those countries, but also different to what Namibia was doing before?
I would say that what Namibia was doing before is a kind of a big scenario, because obviously every school is different, and also many schools are already doing a lot and innovating themselves, little projects or sports activities and different kind of things. So, but basically what we did introduce in the schools was topics that the schools themselves wanted to improve in. So when we started the process, I think Suvi very well said in her video that the three things that we focused on was changing things, but also co-creating the goals. So the ICT and improving in that, improving the learning environments and making them more engaging, and also teacher training and kind of upskilling and learning new things for teachers were things that the schools themselves set as goals for this process. So, and that's when we started planning how can we go towards these goals. So what we did in the schools differently that they've done before is that, first of all, we kind of started to change the way they approach teaching. So we were starting to talk about active learning, which is a basic approach to learning and teaching in Finland. And they were not that familiar with the idea and kind of phenomena that comes with it. So it's all about power shift, I would say. So a power shift from a teacher towards the learners themselves, and the learners being more active. They are asked opinions about things, they can make decisions, and they are teaching each other and so on. So giving a role for the learners is basically a whole idea that we introduced to these two schools. And both of the schools have been then kind of using this idea in their own way. So it has been in smaller and bigger interventions and interactions that they have then started to try this method or idea of active learning in their everyday work. And every teacher then in their own way also. So there was not like a one size or one way fits all idea in here, but we wanted that the teachers can kind of pick the idea and then think like, what does this mean in my lessons with my class and with my learners and with the resources or the topic that I have at hand. So that was the basic idea, and also then there was a good question in the chat about how has this influenced the assessment or learning outcomes also. But I would say that in regards to assessment, at least what we have been able to accomplish in the schools, I think the teachers have been thinking a lot more of other learning outcomes as well, on top of just knowledge outcomes. So we have been introducing, for example, this model called SKA model, meaning skills, knowledge, and attitudes. So in more conventional way of teaching, I would say normally teachers just measure and think about the knowledge goals. So what kind of knowledge do I want my learners to learn today or at this very lesson? But they often forget the skills and attitudes, that what kind of attitudes do I want my learners to learn today, or what kind of skills are they learning today or during this lesson? And adding these two kind of parallel to the knowledge goals has been a big shift. And I would say that a lot of the teachers that we work with are now paying much more attention also to the skills like social emotional skills, listening skills, being active part in the and answering to the questions and raising questions also. So that has been a very, very delightful thing to see.
Great, yeah, thank you. It's definitely something I didn't think of when I was in school. So I'm really excited that these are the sort of innovative approaches we're approaching within the Dololearn project. Mr. Milton, could you perhaps comment on what sort of approaches have been done at Windhoek International School to remain progressive, and which new techniques perhaps, or not necessarily new, but what techniques you've implemented at Windhoek International School?
Excellent.
Sorry,
thank you very much.
Sorry, the question was directed towards Mr. Michael, sorry.
Thank you very much. Am I audible? Can you hear me?
That is Mr. Milton speaking.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm very, very excited about this program because of the vibrancy of the learners and the vibrancy of the quality of learning and the facilitation of the teaching and learning by the learners themselves. They among themselves are facilitating their own learning. They can take better decisions as they are going by the day. And they are also exposed to certain gadgets which they have never seen before. And they are saving on teaching material because of the innovations of the innovation of the desk where they are seated, which can be used as a writing board. There is also a very high investment, which is very futuristic, in the establishment of values. The values to love one another as they are going and sitting in their groups, to value opinions from the others as they are going, as they are pondering and investigating concepts, new concepts, and so on. They value one another. They learn to listen to one another. And so on, also values of patience to one another is also inculcated.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Is that all?
Because I have an additional question for you, Mr. Milton. I do want to hear from Michael as well as to what they've been doing at Windhoek International School.
Can you put your question again?
I'm saying I'll come back to you with another question, Mr. Milton.
Excellent, excellent.
In the meantime, could we hear from Mr. Michael as to the Windhoek International School and what approaches they've been taking towards learner-centered education?
Morning. Can you? I'm back.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the question. I think one of the approaches we've been implementing is building on what Ms. Edabon said earlier, that if you don't know the target, then how do you know how the students are achieving? So one of the fundamental changes we've made at the school is we're using understanding by design in our planning practice. So we are looking at what students are going to be showing us or demonstrating to us to show their understanding. And then how we're having students work through this is when we're designing lessons and tasks, we're trying to bring in Bloom's taxonomy into our lesson planning and assessment planning. So if you're familiar with Bloom's taxonomy, it's a pyramid, and the lower parts of the pyramid are essentially remembering facts and understanding. The top part of the pyramid is analyzing, evaluating, and creating. And so we're trying to have our students operating in those higher order thinking skills as much as we can. Creating new things, adapting, evolving, asking questions. And one of the ways we're doing this is through our self-directed learning program, where students are self-identifying what areas they need to work on. And we're actually, within our schedule, students are able to select which classes or teachers they would like to go into or have more time with to ask questions and get more clarification. And then part of our program, we run the International Baccalaureate program. And it's a philosophy of planning and assessing. But one of the real strengths is the approaches to learning element of the program. So Maria mentioned the SKA program they run, and our ATL program, or approaches to learning, is dealing with self-management, communication, social skills, research, thinking. And so we're embedding all these skills into the classes and planning, and as well into the assessments. So what we're looking at is, as we're implementing these changes, we're looking 4 or 5 years down the road how these are going to improve our students' understanding and performance in our international assessments. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yes. Thank you so much.
I'm very happy to hear that, Michael, and I posted earlier in the chat the link to the issue document. If everybody saw that, there is the publication of our Dololearn project called Active Learning Handbook. And if you look at the pages 14 and 15, you can see the Bloom's taxonomy there, and that was one of the tools that also we used a lot with the teachers when thinking of why should we change, and answering the question that why should we teach differently, why should we change anything in the ways we do. So again, it definitely goes into the goals and what do we want to be as an outcome of the learning process. Then first maybe you think of the outcome, and then you think of what are the methods that will take me towards this outcome. So yeah, that is a very, very good point there.
Yeah, genuinely, we definitely want our learners to have these higher order thinking skills, as opposed to just regurgitating whatever they've learned, right? And our next question from the Q&A is from Edward, and we're going to have Tim answer it. And the question is, could the Dololearn project currently hope to partner with programs such as Edulution to help maybe increase the number of schools that are involved in the Dololearn project? Tim?
Okay, thank you very much for the question, Edward. I think that the short answer is yes, we're always open and interested in sharing some of what we've learned, and also, of course, being able to learn from one another. So while I'm not familiar with the program that you mentioned, I do think absolutely we're interested in identifying other key stakeholders or players in Namibia and Southern Africa that are actively involved in implementing some of these methods and solutions. Also, what I'm excited about is linking to what Michael mentioned and Maria, is that the principles and Bloom taxonomy and that, for example, they might sound like complicated things, and in Namibia might think like, but can this be implemented at public schools or when we don't always have all of the resources? And I think the short answer here is yes. And I refer back to Ms. Frida Garre's statement, which I love. It's such a simple but powerful statement. She says, in my classroom, every learner is also a teacher. And that basically captures that. And Ms. Frida Garres and the team at Faith have shown that, yes, it can be implemented. These principles can be implemented in public school classrooms where we're having 45 to 50 learners at in some classrooms. So absolutely, yes. And I think we're able to learn and share how to do this at other schools in Namibia and Southern Africa as well.
Thank you, Tim. Perhaps considering and just to circle back to Mr. Milton, considering the current situation, right, where not all schools in Namibia have the same amount of resources and some schools are teaching outside. However, the Active Learn or the Dololearn project did include learning outside of the classroom at Faith Primary School. Could you comment on whether this concept could be explored in other schools in Namibia?
Thank you for the question, and I think this is a perfect opportunity for learning outside. Outside learning creates so much value. You know, as people, we are social beings as people, and children are quite naive in their own way, and they want to play outside. When they are outside in the open, they learn better. Their brains operate better. And the classroom at Faith, which I have seen, provides such an opportunity. And this is a model which we can also maybe replicate in many of our schools, as the concept of teaching under trees can be a Namibianized concept, which then can serve as consolidation. When they are learning outside, they come and do the practical sessions of whatever concepts they are learning and so on. So this concept, yes, it is, I like it so much because the children are more relaxed even when they are outside. It's unlike the formal four walls of a classroom and a teacher there. But
Mr. Milton, your microphone went on mute.
Mr. Milton, you muted yourself.
Can you maybe, as a host, unmute him? You can do
that
when
we're
you
doing
have the
that
host rights.
As well. Mr. Milton, are you back?
did I somehow get lost, or?
You muted for a last bit there, but I think we've heard most of what you have to say in terms of the learners being outside and being active and excited to be engaging outside of the formal classroom.
Yes.
There's a question from Justina Mpolo as to what are the short and long-term benefits and improvements in terms of teaching and learning. And I think as an educator, let's ask Mr. Michael to answer this question.
Hello again. Sorry, can you repeat the question?
So the question is, what are the short and long-term benefits and improvements in terms of teaching and learning? Just using a sort of progressive approach. And maybe just to add on to it, perhaps you could also comment on what that looks like now in the lockdown.
In the short term, what we're seeing through our remote learning program is the students' soft skills, like their ability to manage their time, their ability to plan out tasks, their ability to estimate time on task, their communication skills, asking questions, sending emails. Those soft skills, we're seeing quite a drastic improvement in our students over the very short term. In terms of the long term, what we're looking at is if you take what our definition of our learning, we're looking at trying to develop learners who are going to be inquisitive for their entire life, and they're going to be able to ask questions, seek answers, and come to solutions to problems they're also identifying. So in the long term, we are expecting improvements in the exams they're going to take, like the external assessment pieces. But what we're hoping for, or what we believe is going to happen, is that when they enter into the real world, they're going to have all these tools to help them cope with a future which is completely unknown. So we have a word that we use, VUCA, which was actually a US military term, and it means volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguity. I can't even say the word, ambiguity, sorry. But it's basically dealing with an uncertain future. So what skills do these students currently need? One thing we do know is the career market these students are going to enter, these younger students, is going to be different to what is today. So how do we prepare for an uncertain future? So in the short term, these soft skills, we're seeing a drastic improvement through with our students. The long term, we're looking at how are they going to be able to cope with the uncertain future. And what does that look like currently at my school in terms of COVID-19? We had a discussion about whether calling it online learning, e-learning, and we decided to go with remote learning as our program, because we don't want our students learning to be strictly tied to being online. We want to give them tasks where they then go out and then they're learning either outside or with their parents, doing different things. We don't want their learning to be necessarily tied to the technology. Technology is a portal or a way for us to give out information and give out feedback and to receive information, but the actual learning that the students are doing could be family-based, could be through e-learning, could be different elements, but we chose remote learning because we feel the students are learning every day now in every situation. So it's just not about being online with a teacher talking to the students like they would in the classroom environment. Not sure if that answered the question.
No, it's definitely interesting to hear, especially in terms of the soft skills. I mean, it's a no-brainer that we'd want all of the learners across the country to have those same sort of soft skills and, you know, to embrace the learning in such a way that it's not necessarily online or contact, but rather remote, in the sense that you can learn in the classroom, you can learn outside of the classroom, you can learn at home, you can grow a bean, and so forth. Our last question, and I'm so sorry about time, we'll address the additional questions from the Q&A on the Facebook page again. But our last question is directed towards Tim, and it's just to say that, you know, based on what Mr. Milton has said about rolling out the sort of outside classroom across the country, and based on the soft skills that Mr. Michael mentioned, how feasible is the Dololearn project to promote future education in Namibia? Or why do you think it's feasible, rather?
Okay, thank you, Emilia. I think, yes, both, so I mentioned earlier on that I think it's an interesting success to hear Ms. Frida Gares and other teachers also show that it can be implemented, that the methods and the pedagogical approach can be implemented. When it comes to the physical changes, we did time and time again look at, like, how can we do more with the existing resources, with the existing funding that is available, which sometimes is very minimal. So we have to make every dollar that we're spending go as far as possible. To give you a practical example, and for the inside classroom changes that we made, we replaced some desks, we provided some seating furniture, or shared that and experimented with using carpets for the lower grades. The cost of the equipment in these classrooms range between 15 and 25,000 Namibian dollars, or so that's really a fraction of the cost that you would expect to refurnish a classroom or even build a new classroom. The outside classroom that Milton Yaota mentioned is cost no more than, I think, 6,000 Namibian dollars in material costs. So this is something that can be replicated with existing resources, or perhaps a bit of support from organizations, foundations that are already investing in education. And that's why I'm interested in seeing these solutions being implemented elsewhere. If you haven't been part of the conversation and the outside classroom, for example, that Mr. Yato mentioned, it is also shown in the publication for which we've shared the link. So please do go and have a look at some of the images that are provided there to see what such a simple outside classroom can look like. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. And I guess something we didn't get to sort of draw on from both the teacher's perspective and the stakeholders, some of the challenges that the Dololearn project has experienced thus far, but they are addressed in the publication, and the conversation can definitely continue on the Facebook page. So make sure to look into that and to just keep the conversation going around education for every 1 in 3 Namibians. To end off, and thank you so much for all the panelists for joining us for this conversation. We would like to have Tim, the CEO and co-founder of Dololo Namibia, just to give the closing address for the entire seminar or webinar, sorry. And yeah, thank you so much for joining us. Over to Tim.
Thank you, Julia. Yeah, so it gives me really great pleasure to be able to provide the closing remarks here. I want to thank, first of all, each and everyone that has been a part of this project. So starting with the schools that are the real champions and have been involved in this every day. So we're very aware of the incredible time constraints, the pressure sometimes in uncertain situations that the teachers have been working on. So thank you very, very much for all of the teachers that have been a part of this experimentation, this uncertain change towards something better. Also a big, big thank you to all of the decision makers or leaders, perhaps, the management of Berthold Academy, the Mr. Milton Yato and his team at the Commerce Directorate of the Ministry of Education, and also the head office from the team of Mrs. Bourne and co, who have supported our project and this experimentation process. Then I do want to thank everybody that joined us today. So we had over 50 participants joining the webinar from all around the world, including, of course, many towns in Namibia, Zambia, South Africa, Finland, and also London. So thank you very much for joining us today. With that said, I think one of the questions that we're asking ourselves, of course, is where to from here? What happens now after this? And there are a few components that make up this answer. So in this project, we've been able to show that some of these pedagogical approaches are really feasible and viable in the Namibian and Southern African context. But what is really important to understand, to make this a success and to be able to implement this at other schools, we need visionary leaders, we need committed teachers and teams at the schools and on the ground that really want to make a positive change. Much like Michael described, his team is already implementing things, and you saw Ms. Gares and also Romanus earlier sharing his experiences. It comes down to teachers and the leadership team at the schools and on the ground that need to be committed and want to go through this change process to create better and more exciting supportive learning and teaching environments. With that component in place, we need the full support of management. In private schools, this comes to the school boards, also the investors in private schools that need to be on board and share the same vision, much like Sugi Nenone mentioned. We need to co-create a vision of a future school that we want to build together. Of course, at the public schools, we also need the full support of the education inspectors, such as we had Mr. Milton Yato on board in this. We need the support of the regional offices, and we need the support of the Ministry of Education head office. So thank you, Mrs. Bourne, once again for joining us here today. Of course, all of these initiatives also require funding. We need funding sources and supporters to come on board. And I would like to encourage any organizations that are already investing in education and solutions around the country of Southern Africa to consider this as an opportunity to join forces and invest in something where we can get a higher return on investment for less spending, or not fancy, expensive solutions, but ones that we've been able to show can work. And with all of that, I think the last component that we need is really a culture of experimentation, embracing uncertainty and embracing fun and going through this process together. Much like Sui mentioned earlier on, any such a process does require a lot of sort of guidance, co-creation, discussion, collaboration, and very, very important communication. So I embrace anybody or that want to encourage anybody to pursue this culture of experimentation, of iterative improvements towards a more exciting and supportive learning environment. And with that, yeah, that's it. So thanks again to everybody for joining us today. Thank you very, very much. We'll be looking to share a recording of this online so it can be shared more widely. If you do have any questions, do feel free to reach out to us, or also visit the Facebook page where you can contact us or email us at inspire@dololo.io. There is also an online project page which has more details in the videos. So we look forward to hearing from you. And lastly, after closing this webinar, you will be presented with a link on which you can provide some feedback, any questions, and can contact us or leave some final remarks. Thank you very much and have a wonderful day.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Tim. Thanks for the Dololo team and the extended team of the whole project, including our Finnish friends. Thank you.
Thank you, Ilari, as well, and for the size. And I think we will keep in touch, for sure.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone, and have a great afternoon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi, everyone. Thank you all for joining us.